A TomTom satellite navigation unit drizzled in honey. A Helinox chair with crisp, fresh iceberg lettuce. High-end LED fog lights dipped in creamy milk chocolate. Climb jackets sprinkled with free-range goat's cheese. And Schuberth helmets with a naturally sourced cherry on top. This isn't just any adventure bike shop. This is the adventure bike shop. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello and welcome to Adventure Bike TV, the very first one of 2019. And as you'll notice, I've managed to get rid of the upstart presenter. Actually, no, I haven't really. He will be back later with the second-hand bike review and, of course, an update on the competition for the KTM 790 Adventure R. But, of course, now it's time for the bike review.
Welds in aluminium can fatigue and fail over time. That's why our panniers are riveted, like aircraft. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
There is a whole community of bikers out there for whom their riding is all about their enduro bikes. Now, of course, enduro bikes are off-road machines that, because they've got headlights and they meet regulations, you can take them on the road as well, but they're really off-road machines. What Honda have done with the CRF 450L is something quite different. They've taken a pure breed motocross bike and turned it into what they say is a dual purpose machine. Now, dual purpose is different to enduro because it must be able to be equally as good on tarmac as it is off-road. The question is it possible to take a motocross bike and make it a dual purpose machine? Whilst there is no doubt in my mind at all that the natural home for the CRF is on the trails and on the dirt, in order for it to be a real dual purpose bike, it has to be at home to a certain degree on the tarmac. And what I found in the first hour of riding this bike is it surprised me by how smooth it is. It's a motocross bike, but actually at 65 miles an hour on the dual carriageway, I'm trundling along without even realising I'm riding a single cylinder bike. Why is it so smooth on the road? Because Honda have thought it through. It's not simply been a case of adding a set of lights, and they've paid particular attention around the engine. So, brace yourself because this is where we're going to get a bit techie. The fundamental architecture of the 4-valve engine isn't much different from the motocross bike, but much has changed to enable the dual sport nature of it. The crank's mass has been increased, resulting in 13% more inertia, which, for a trail rider, equals improved torque, feel and response. The valve timing has been revised to give the broader, smoother spread of power and torque. The gearbox is now 6-speed rather than 5 for longer range use on the tarmac. These things are why it feels so smooth on the road. So it's better than I expected on tarmac, but this bike is based on a motocrosser, so we headed off the roads and onto the trails. Well, trails might be stretching the definition a little bit. There was mud everywhere, and even where it looked like there wasn't any, it was lurking just below the surface. A great test for the 450. Now, Tom, being the friendly and approachable and helpful producer and friend that he is, has just pointed out to me how boring and slow my riding looks in these horrifically muddy and difficult and slippery conditions. And he's right. But my comeback is I'm an adventure rider. I'm not a trained motocrosser or enduro rider. But the fact that I can actually remain upright in thick mud and ruts, which are my nightmare, says a lot about the ability of this bike. Muddy ruts, and it is just going through them. The only limitation on how fast I can go through it is me. Honda haven't disclosed the exact horsepower of the 450L, but it's in the 40s. It's plenty enough. The ACG has been upgraded to provide the required electrical power for the LED lights and to maintain battery charge during low speed running. A cush drive has been added to absorb chain shock, and with the first major service at just under 20,000 miles, a good gap between major strip downs combined with the legendary Honda reliability, could this not only be a good dual sports bike, but the ultimate dual sports bike? However, there is a price to pay for this, a slightly eye-watering $9.5 grand. So if you had almost 10 grand to spend on a new bike, what might you also look at? If you were leaning towards the longer distance side of dual sporting, you'd probably wait and see what the new Yamaha Tenere was like. It's reported to be coming in at around this price. But if you wanted the low-weight, motocross-oriented heritage, your options are a bit more limited. A second-hand CCM 450 Adventure. Maybe, but the engine isn't a patch on the Hondas. The BMW GS310 is not as good off-road. Maybe the Honda CRF 250. Much less power, of course. For this specific type of machine, your options are just a little bit limited. Just for a change on a winter bike review, it hasn't been raining, although it has been very, very muddy. But on to the important stuff. What did I think of the CRF 450L? Now, I set myself a question at the start, which was, can Honda take a pure breed motocross bike and turn it into a proper dual sport machine? So in order to do that, it has to be competent on the tarmac, which it is. Now, I thought at the start that the power seemed a bit lackluster, but I worked out why. It's because it's delivered so smoothly through the rev range, which actually makes it a joy to ride, and it's not vibey at speed. Probably one of the least vibey single-cylinder bikes I've ridden on the tarmac. So tick that box. Off-road. Well, it's going to be good, isn't it? It's a motocross bike. But the proof of the pudding for me is that I have been riding this bike all day in the conditions I hate the most, so muddy ruts, and I haven't come off once, and that was due to the competence of the bike far more than my skill. Helped, of course, by the fact the bike's only a handful of kilos heavier than the motocross bike, and that's a stunning achievement. Who would have one of these bikes? Could you ride it on an adventure around the world? Yes, absolutely, of course you could. You might go a bit slower than you want to on the tarmac, but you would have a whale of a time off the tarmac and on the trails. For anybody who rides around the countryside here, green lanes, TRF type rides, it's the perfect tool for that kind of job. And would I have one in my garage for those types of things? Absolutely I would.
Our handles are spring-loaded to ensure they don't rattle, reducing noise when riding. Metal Mule. Engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Have we mentioned that we have a competition going? And not just any old competition, this is a competition for a brand new bike. And not just any brand new bike. You cannot even see these bikes in the dealers yet. And every month you can win a whole load of goodies. And here to tell you all about it is the other presenter, the upstart, the understudy. Anyway, yeah, him.
Time to talk about the competition. And of course, don't forget, at the end of Season 6, you can win the KTM 790 Adventure R and a free weekend at KTM Adventure Bike Experience at Sweetlam to try out your new bike. So, what's in this month's competition? Let's find out. In this month's competition, we have a TomTom Rider 550 from Tran-Am, plus a £100 shipping voucher from Motor Freight, plus an X-Bed Cloudburst 25 backpack, and an MSR Pocket Rocket Original, a Life Venture Trek towel, a Continental tank bag and waterproof roll bag, plus loads of Adventure Bike TV goodies and DVDs. Entry is just £2. You can enter as many times as you like, and this will also get you into the competition to win the KTM 790 Adventure R. So, how do we go about it? Well, if you go to the Adventure Bike TV website, click on the competition link, answer the question, Bob's your uncle. Good luck, and we'll see you next month.
Now it's time to go back to Tales from the Trails. On last episode we found our bikes, and now we're finally getting to do some riding. There are 3 bikes hiding around this spooky deserted town, split up, and whichever bike you find, it is yours for the trip. Good luck.
So it's literally a whoever gets the best bike first wins.
To myself, what a wonderful world. What a wonderful world.
Being as what the nature of adventure is, finding and experiencing all manner of things new. I'm going to be a poet now. All manner of things new. Let's go and look at my poo. In this back garden, earthy place in the middle of Belgium, they have a composting toilet. So, I won't actually show you my poo, but you have to use the facility, which is basically a box with a bucket in it. And once you're finished, you grab some sawdust and put it on top. Do your thing. Toilet paper can be thrown in the bucket as well, and finish with a cup of sawdust. Thank you for your contribution. I like that.
You feel like you've contributed, Glenn?
I feel like I contributed well.
So we were completely ready to go at like 7 o'clock at the crack of dawn this morning. All ready to go, excited to get going, but we can't. because the text doesn't come through. But it has come through now, so now we know what we're actually doing and where we're going. So,
Yeah, right. Okay, this is what it says. It's morning. I hope you enjoyed the evening. Who shared the double bed?
Me and Tom.
Yeah. Okay, so today you will join the Belgium Tet before leaving the route around lunchtime and heading down to one of the best road routes in the country before finishing the night in an Airbnb. Have a good ride, gents.
To be fair, that's quite good because we're combining off-road and on-road.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I'm quite excited about it on the little 701. That should be really fun. And a bit of a blast around the roads.
What I'm really excited about is this morning when it's freezing cold, I'll have heated grips. Do you have heated grips, Graham?
I have heated grips. I can have nice warm paws.
Yeah. Sam, do you have heated grips? You're such a morning person.
Within a few miles of our overnight stay, we joined the Tet, ready to see what Belgium had to offer in terms of off-road riding, and very quickly we had our first drop. Was it on some hardcore part of the trail? No. It was Tom, dropping his bike while turning around in the road.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell me about what just happened.
I was overexcited and turned too quickly.
In front of an audience as well.
The great thing is, my helmet camera's on.
One thing I had noticed, and it's a very small thing, a technical thing about riding that bike. So, yesterday, it felt really strange. In changing up from first to second, I thought, there's something wrong with it. I don't know, it's moving up, the revs are dropping at about 3,000 revs. And what I'd forgotten is a quick shifter on it.
Oh.
So I was moving my foot marginally before my hand was putting the clutch in,
And that was changing.
and it was quick shifting without me realising it was dropping the revs. The quick shifter off-road, you don't have to bother with the clutch, it's fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, you just go, click, you don't have to worry about where your hand is. Once we had given Tom absolutely zero sympathy, and specifically in my case, no help at all, we continued to ride. And to be surprised by the variety of services on the trails, and just what a beautiful country we were discovering.
Because he's not very good on sandy stuff and he's not very good on like wet mud, but rocks and things he destroys me on.
Yeah.
So that he has to paddle it.
My favourite stuff.
Did you come off? But you paddled?
Yeah.
I noticed you didn't turn the camera on so you paddling through that.
I didn't even think about it. I was concentrating too much on my paddling. I didn't paddle.
Yeah, but when we get to rocks it'll be completely reversed. I'll be like, "Ah, ow, ow," and you'll be like, boom.
Graham was not enjoying the sand at all, even so much that he opted to fly the drone rather than go back on the sand again for a shot. So we decided to work on our sand riding, deciding to take it in turns to try powering through a sandy corner.
Of the three utterly unspectacular attempts at fast, slidey cornering, Tom's was by far the least impressive. I mean, none of them were above A grade poor, but really, Tom, that was a shocker. But, being the competitive type, he had a second go and, well, we have to give him some marks for commitment at least.
That was commitment.
Despite the confidence-building corner fun, Graham was still a little slower than Tom and I. Don't worry, Graham. I'm sure it was only due to the heavy bike, mate.
Never mind the sand, the important thing was that Belgium was a revelation. The riding wasn't particularly technical, but it was great fun. Unless, of course, you hate riding in the sand. So at least Tom and Sam were having a fun time, whilst I tried my hardest not to shit a brick at the thought of dropping the 1290.
Just come off the tech, had a good day, blasting around, quite sandy, which was lots of fun. Wasn't expecting that. So yeah, nice one.
How do you find the sand?
I'm not the biggest fan of sand, unfortunately, but I have to learn it. So I can't say I was enjoying the deep sand, but I didn't come off, Tom.
Hey, I didn't come off, I just dropped the bike. Why'd you have to be like that? I didn't drop
The bike was tired, wasn't it, Tom?
No, I'm just short.
I've got the best bike for this journey, hands down. I may not have warm hands, but what I do have is a hell of a lot of fun. Yeah, on the sandy trails and, well, on everything. It sits happily at 80 on the motorway, and then on the sandy bits, yeah, just blast through it. It's lovely. I'm a lucky boy. That's what I am.
As always, I'm loving being out and riding. I have to say, 1290, which I've ridden before, but not for the kind of distance we're doing now. Fallen in love with it 100%. It's fantastic. I didn't think I would find such a big difference between that and my 1190. I'm 100% in love with it, and I'm really looking forward to doing more sandy trails later this afternoon. On Adventure Bike TV, we really listen to our audience, and our audience has told us that they don't like our advert breaks, so there'll be no more adverts. What we have are messages from our sponsors.
Climb jackets, sprinkled with free-range goat's cheese. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.
A TomTom satellite navigation unit drizzled in honey. The Adventure Bike Shop.
Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.
So I hope you enjoyed our messages from our sponsors. But now it's time for the second-hand bike review with Sam. Sam, of course I didn't forget your name. Tom just wrote it down on a bit of paper for me.
Welcome to the second-hand bike review. Today here in sunny Wales with the Yamaha Tenere 660 and its gracious owner, Gary Smith.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Gary. Gary, tell me, how did this bike come along?
So, Sam, this is a replacement bike for another Yamaha XT660 that I had as my daily ride. That one was stolen from work. Some people came in with angle grinders and a van and lifted it from a secure car park. So I was lucky enough to find this one earlier this year.
I mean, as a bike, I mean, how do you find it? Do you have any other bikes?
Yeah. At the moment, I've got 3 bikes. A R1150 GS Adventure, and that was my mainstay bike for most of my travelling. That's got about 165,000 miles on the clock now. I'm lucky enough to have a Honda CRF 1000, the New Africa Twin, and this bike, the XT660. I have to say, out of all the bikes I've currently got there, Sam, this is my favourite. This is the one that makes me smile best.
Really? Well, I mean, it looks pretty standard. I mean, is there anything in particular that you've done to it that to kind of make it your own?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two areas. One is the electrics. So I've installed a PDM60, which has given me an additional wiring loom. Okay. So starting at the front, then we've got additional high-vis lights for riding visibility, heated grips, sat-nav, 12-volt sockets under the seat for a mini compressor, and additional power points as well for charging things like USB and other devices. Okay. And then in addition to that, there's I'm really lucky to be a Metal Mule ambassador, so I've got some hard parts that have been given to be my Metal Mule. So there's a couple of bits on the bike in terms of the side stand switch and the bash plate. Right. And of course the luggage, I'm a great fan of.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, hard luggage over soft. That's a big argument that lots of people have. Yeah. My experience with soft has been different. I actually lost the whole set of soft luggage somewhere on the A31 Hog's Back, I think it was. So it's out there somewhere.
Well, so if anyone on the road sees a set of soft luggage, you know where to go.
Yeah,
so.
I'd have it back gratefully. There's some a t-shirt and a pair of shoes in there, I think. So I've got a full range of Metal Mule luggage. Only small panniers though, because you really don't need to take that much on a trip. So two very slim panniers. There's a top box as well, and then I have a roll-up bag for occasional other bits and pieces as well. But it's basically as it comes from the factory, Sam.
Oh, fantastic! Well, if you don't mind, we would like to actually test ride this bike in of course, the fantastic wet Welsh weather. And yes, thank you so much for allowing us to do that.
Yeah, look after her. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Out on the road, we didn't have the best of conditions, but this single cylinder is a bike that does not like to be pushed, and you sense that when opening up the throttle. It's not happy about pulling its 187 kilogram bulk. The engine has a slight vibe to it, but I didn't find it to be that noticeable, not more so than my KTM 690. So, after finishing my little stint on the road with this bike, my first impressions are that the engine is very, very smooth. The gear changes are very light. I mean, it revs nicely. It's not excitable when you open her up, but anywhere between 4,000 to 7,000 RPM, it does need a bit more coaxing, and the burble of the engine and the couple of pops here and there, it makes it a fantastic bike. Based on the XT660 trail bike, the Tenere was launched in 2008 and was different in only its 23-litre tank and its rally styling. The bike is a great all-rounder, a jack of all trades, but with only 45 brake horsepower, some may find it lacking, and over 70 miles an hour, you are going to notice some of those vibes. As a bike to tour, it's great. This alongside its price point and dependability, if not old technology, makes it a bike for someone whose idea of a trip is the journey and not the destination. Really feel the weight too much, although it does carry it high up, and it comes in 40 kilograms heavier than the original 600 Tenere, which carried 30% more fuel as well. So it was great on the hard gravel trails, but Tom, the ever annoying director, wanted to try something a bit more technical. So I headed to the grassy trail with completely unsuitable tyres, and of course, unsurprisingly, Yeah, it didn't work. As the old saying goes, proper off-road tyres maketh the off-road bike. And I got nowhere fast. Let's do it the proper way, eh? However, it did offer one great insight into the bike. It's a really heavy bike to pick up. Back on the trails, it was a blast. And when off-road, I found the riding position while standing really good for me. Of course, riding position is a very personal thing and it might not suit everyone. And if I was being a little picky, the handlebars could have been raised a little. One of my biggest issues was the seat. The original seat that comes with the bike has a real dip in it, making it more comfortable when sitting and road riding, but when off-road, it really limits your movements backwards and forwards, which can be frustrating. So, let's talk about road performance. With this bike, the engine's buttery smooth, the shifting is very positive, it does lose a bit towards the top end, but it makes up for it in a nice grunt down the bottom. As a road bike, it's brilliant. We have to remember the origins of this bike are in the Dakar. It is old school technology. We do have quite an old school motor here. The oil is actually in the frame and it's a steel frame and it is a bit top heavy, but saying all that, it's a very well balanced bike. And even though we don't have proper off-road tyres in which we could do some mud and grass, for hardpack it was a lot of fun. If you're looking at buying one of these, there's really only one issue, and that's with a small range of bikes which has a problem with third gear. Now if you go onto the Yamaha forums, you can double check the engine number, make sure that's been done in the service history, and you're good to go. Now on to cost. For an older model with high mileage, you're probably looking at anywhere between £2,000 to £3,000. Saying that, they wear their mileage very well. For a younger model, lower mileage, probably anywhere between 4 and 5. To sum up, would I take one of these around the world? The answer is yes, I would. It doesn't have the excitement of the newer adventure bikes, maybe the speed, the power, but it is a comfortable, reliable machine and something that you'll know will get you to where you want to go.
Thank you, Sam, for the second-hand bike review, and 100% honestly, hand on heart, welcome to the team. We are delighted to have you on board. Now it's time for Under the Visor.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
Hi, I'm Gary Smith. I've been riding bikes for 40 odd years now. I'm a Metal Mule ambassador and one of the founder Jupiter's Travellers in the Ted Simon Foundation. I got my parents to blame for riding bikes. Both mum and dad rode bikes, and some of my early memories are really being on the back of dad's bike, a combination of Triumphs and an old BSA. I remember it very clearly. So I never had to worry about the fear of telling my parents I was going to be a biker. So I just progressed, got a bike licence before I got a car licence, spent a few years dispatch riding in London, and then got a different job and then moved on and have been riding consistently for the last 40 odd years. Yes, about 6 years ago, I was invited by the Ted Salmon Foundation to be one of their founder Jupiter's Travellers. The Jupiter's Travellers are now a group of people whose role really is to encourage independent travel out there in the big wide world. I joined the team, and my responsibility or my role is really just to encourage sort of solo motorbike travel. I think the key thing for me is that the whole world of adventure motorcycling can seem a bit scary, and it's sort of my role to try and demystify some of those things. So I run a sort of free service to people that if they want to try and come and work on their bikes before a trip, or they want some accessories fitted, or some hard luggage or soft luggage or other bits and pieces, that they can come and I'll help them. They do the work, they use my tools and my equipment, but they'll do the work and I'll guide and support them. And I sort of firmly believe that if you get your hands into the bike and you get to know the inside of your bike, you can deal with a lot of the faults by the roadside, and it sort of helps demystify the whole process. Yes, the whole thing is free. It's about giving something back to the community, really. I've been supported all over the world when I've travelled. I've broken down and people have stopped to help me. People have given me food and drink wherever I've been. So if I can try and encourage other people into riding a bike or riding an adventure bike or just going on a trip, then I think it's something that's genuinely worthwhile. And I've had a whole range of bikes into the workshop, from sort of sports bike to more modern adventure bikes. And most of the things that I encourage people to do are around electrical systems and some basic mechanicals, doing basic services by the roadside, wheel and tyre selection, and fitting luggage with them, the hard versus soft argument, for instance. I help guide people around that. Probably a couple of bits of advice really from me. Mechanical problems on the bike generally can be fixed, or you can get help to try and fix them. I think if you do have a problem or a puncture or something like that, there's always time to stop, have a think, have a cup of tea. I carry tea with me everywhere, so stop, have a brew, think about your options before making a rash decision on what you're going to do. And then really around travel, sometimes it can get a bit lonely on the road. I do wild camping and I camp in other locations, but sometimes it's nice just to find a cheap room and check in, wash your clothes, phone home, just make sure everything's okay, and that can do a tremendous amount to lift your spirits as well. So don't feel the pressure that you must camp all the time. There are options for Airbnb or just cheap rooms around the world. Just take advantage of those things, and if you're feeling ill, don't push yourself. Just move on at your own pace. I think for me the perennial problems is punctures. I think almost every year I have a puncture somewhere. The way you deal with them is makes the difference between it ruining your day and moving on. With the BM, when I was travelling in Norway, for example, I actually wrote the tyre off and was completely stranded. But pretty quickly, people came along, gave me a hand, gave me a lift into a town. I was even offered a room at the local prison jail for a night. The police officers let me stay there. I managed to get a tyre from the Bridgestone distribution centre in Sweden, and within sort of 24 hours I was back on the road again, and it was an easy fix. Another time I broke down in Alta with a fuel pump problem, and again other bikers came to my aid, and fairly quickly we got the bike back on the road again. So it's there is a great sort of brethren out there of people who will help you, and I think karma's a good thing. If you stop and help somebody when you need some help, then somebody will come and help you. Yeah, I sort of have a fear that we're pricing ourselves out of the adventure bike market, or the demographic of the people who are going on trips is sort of getting older and older. So I really like to encourage sort of young people into the activity or the sport. I've got a great range. I've got expensive bikes and cheap bikes, but for a couple of grand you can buy a bike that's going to take you all over the place. With a few £100 for some sensible modifications, you can make it more robust and get it out there. So I think it's really down to people like me and my colleagues just to try and encourage more and more young riders into the market, and just get them to go out there and try a trip. It doesn't have to be a massive trip. It could be a weekend away or a week somewhere, but just try it, and you'll never look back. So yeah, if you want to find out about the workshop, then the workshop has a Facebook page, the Overland Motorcycle Preparation Workshop. And if you want to get in contact with me or check out what I'm doing, then there's a website, tcleared.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at @tcleared.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Motofreight, proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
Continuing with our all-new content from the fully revamped Adventure Bike TV, it is now time for Info Hub. Right, over the last couple of months on Top Riding Tips, we've been talking about riding uphills and we've been talking about riding downhills. Now, assuming you are successful in that, you don't need to have this month's Top Riding Tip, but if you get stuck on a hill, what do you do in terms of turning round?
Okay, well, there's two different approaches really. My approach for going when you're going uphill and you stop, and you know you're not going to make it, is stall the bike and stop. If you leave it in gear with the clutch out, you can get both feet on the floor and you've got a chance now to compose yourself and think of the action. You're going to have to go back, but you can use the clutch as an added brake while you've got your feet on the floor. So with both feet on the floor, you can pull the clutch in and slowly start to move the bike backwards till you can get into a position where you're in control. We'll do it later. It's as simple as that. Don't pull the clutch in because you're going backwards, sharpish.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done that. Hands up.
Everybody does. Okay.
I ended up on the floor, so this will be good.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let's go.
Yep,
okay.
cheers.
Okay. So basically, I'm going to ride to the hill and I'm going to stop it on the hill and just show you how we're actually going to do it. Whoops. Okay. So now we're in a bit of trouble because the bike's at the standstill. But I'm not doing anything. I've not got the front brake on. And now I'll just take my foot off. So I've got both feet on the ground and the bike is held. I'm in first gear, so that makes it easier. So all I'm going to do is roll it back. I have to use a bit of front brake, but everything's done on the clutch. Okay, so just going to roll it back, nice and steady. No rush, you've already messed it up, so there's no drama in it at all. So I'm just pulling the clutch in, letting the bike come back to me. So there's another way to do it. You can get off and walk it back by doing the same thing like this. The bike's still holding itself. Straighten it up, use your clutch. Bit of front brake. Done. It's as simple as that. Nice ride into the ruts. Okay, stop. Okay, clutch out. Okay.
Yep.
So the bike's holding itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're going to just roll back, just use a bit of front brake. Both feet on the floor, pull the clutch in. Nice and steady. Just try and stop it there now.
Yep.
Full control, no dramas, nice and easy. Okay, well done. I like the way you went through the ruts at the bottom as well. Very neat.
Look ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's it. How easy is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can get it into neutral. You can push it back a little bit. You can have your run in.
Yeah.
Okay. If you try to restart on the hill, you're not going to do it. 150 horsepower.
Yeah.
You've not got a chance. You'll just dig a big hole. Just push it back. First, short shift, second, ride it straight out as we've did before.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well done, mate.
Again, that's being about control,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Not being the hero,
Nope.
just nice and controlled, get yourself out of problems,
Yep.
and then you can continue on your way.
Correct.
Yeah.
But how easy was that when you can basically let the bike stand there on its own and you haven't got to worry?
Yeah.
It's done.
Perfect.
Yeah, great stuff.
and welcome to Meals on Two Wheels. Welcome to 2019! Yay! So this time round we are having a bit of a challenge, and I've been challenged to cook with 3 ingredients. And that's kind of cool actually, because one of my favourite things to cook, which is only just simply 3 ingredients, is a Spanish tortilla. So today we're going to be cooking a Spanish tortilla, and what we have for those are some nice waxy potatoes, a good old-fashioned white onion, 3 eggs. So first things first, we're going to peel the potatoes. The reason I absolutely love doing this segment is because I love food, and I kind of requested doing this because, hey, I get to eat really good food, and hey, that's awesome. So the next thing we're going to do is chop up these potatoes. My potatoes are actually quite small, so really, it's better to do them lengthways. To make them a little bit more stable, I'm just chopping off the bottom, turning them sideways, and then cutting them probably in 2 to 3 mil slices. Oh, we got some puppies joining us. Hello. This is Bee. She's our travel pooch. Hello, Bee. For this size pan, that's perfect. The amount of potatoes that they're absolutely bang on. Onion time. When you cook them off, you caramelize them in the pan, and it's that caramelization that adds the sweetness to a tortilla. So yeah, chopping them up relatively thin. We've got a fire going here, and we thought, well, we'll chuck it on the fire. It makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. Right, so you can see that you've got some nice goldeny bits going on here now. So what we're going to do is add in the potatoes. I did just give them a bit of a spritz with oil. I'm going to chuck them in. Now this would probably take about maybe 20 minutes. Keep stirring them every so often. If they seem to be taking a bit longer, you can always put a lid on just to let it kind of cook off a bit quicker. And what we'll do actually is we'll sort out the eggs now. Flonk. Oh, lost a bit of eggshell in there. So 3 eggs for this. As you can see in here, haven't whisked them. Just going to leave them like that until those are ready to put in. Oh, look at all of that. Oh, right, so you guys can see. I don't have anything quite big enough to put on top, but do you know what? That will help maintain the heat anyway, so I am going to leave it there. Okay, so this has now been cooking for maybe about 20 minutes, and what I'm going to do is take these and just put them straight into the pan here with the eggs. And then literally just mix the eggs into it. Like I say, you don't need to whisk the eggs, they're breaking up naturally anyway. You leave this mixture like this for about 10 minutes. Okay, gonna chuck this all in the pan now. Probably on this kind of temperature, you're looking at maybe 4 or 5 minutes on one side, and then we'll flip it, do the other side, and then it'll be ready to eat. Right, so it's been cooking now for a couple of minutes. Flip it over. Ha-ha! And you have the tortilla. Slide it back in and cook the other side. Right, so I believe this is done now. Now, it should have quite a firm texture to it. This seems really good, so I'm going to put this on the plate. And that's what you end up with. A Spanish tortilla. Now, not only can you eat this warm, you can keep this till the next day. I'm going to give it a go and see if it tastes any good. Mmm. Hot. Very hot, but really good. I would get Tom on to try it, but instead we got some passers-by. They're looking a bit tentatively at me, but I'm going to try and get them in to see if they'll try a little bit. Guys, do you want to come try some? Help yourself. Potato, onions, and egg.
Yeah.
Simple,
Nice,
simple food, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, this is the end of our Spanish tortilla section. Thank you ever so much for joining us. And I hope very much to see you next time where we're going to be cooking some other good bits. Bye!
This month on Top Tech, we are looking at the TomTom Rider 550, TomTom's newest offering for motorcyclists. We took the Rider 550 with us to Belgium so we could give it a really decent test. The spec on this is pretty impressive, with updates via Wi-Fi so you don't need to connect it to a computer, a phone connection that also allows you to use Siri or Google Now, as well as it reading your phone messages aloud to you in your helmet. The 4.3-inch touchscreen is great and clear, and the RAM mount it comes with allows it to be easily switched between landscape and portrait viewing. The screen also works with gloves without any issues, but we did find that without gloves it sometimes registered our fingers before we had even made contact with the screen. So all that tech is nice, but how is it for adventure riders? Well, on the road it's amazing, and it has great new options, including the options to find the most windy or hilly roads for entertaining riding. However, once again there is no option for trails, meaning it can't be used on things like the Tet. For this reason we give the TomTom Rider 550 4 stars rather than 5. Don't forget there is one of these up for grabs this month on the competition too. So we're going to be looking at pitching a tent now, and the tent we have is the MSR Alexa 2. Now why did we choose this tent, Claire?
It's a really good backpacking and overlanding tent. It does come with its own footprint, it gives you tons of space, and it's really quite compact. I know it's quite fluffy at the moment, but how lightweight is it though, right?
Oh, it's very lightweight, and it does compact a lot smaller if you want it to. There's the pegs.
And it's some poles.
The first thing to do when you're setting up any tent, especially when you're on slightly muddy or damp ground, is to put the ground sheet down. In many cases, once you've set up the tent for the first time, you can leave the footprint attached, making it faster pitching and packing up. When you are pitching a tent and it's not 100% even ground, you just want to bear in mind that you want your head to face slightly uphill, not downhill, because, let's be honest, who wants to sleep with their kind of
blood running to the head?
Blood running to the head.
I know.
So the thing I love about this tent is its flexibility, because you can have the internal fly sheet pitched on its own. So if you are in somewhere very, very hot and you want to have just protection from mosquitoes and things like that, you can use it just like that without the outer, and I think that's a great flexible part of a tent. I think it's really important to have.
Exactly. Or you could do a bit of stargazing at the same time, eh?
Yeah.
Check it out. Do those things. I like that. Not that we're going to do that with Storm Diana at the moment. Blimey.
So this is it in its basic form without the waterproof cover on. Which I think is fantastic, and you can pitch this quite happily. Just leave it like this if you're in hot climates and you wanted a bit of air flowing through. But I just love this. It gives you this little bar.
I know, right?
Just gives you so much extra headroom and makes it feel so much more spacious inside. It's a lovely bit of kit, really well thought out.
Bear in mind how tiny it was and now how big it's popped open.
I know, it's lovely.
Isn't it cool, huh? Right, so we have the fly sheet on it now, but the next thing we have to do is peg out these guy lines, which a lot of people don't necessarily do properly, and that's not necessarily a good thing, especially when you have a windy day and potentially a rainy night as well as today. So
yeah, I mean, it frustrates me, and the key thing is guy lines are not just there to stop it flowing off in the wind or floating off in the rain. That has some actually really specific stuff that makes your life better when you're inside. Any tent, doesn't matter how waterproof it is, what material it's made of, if you are inside and you are a warm-bodied thing and it's cold outside, throughout the night you're going to get condensation on the inside of this tent.
You will.
It just happens, you can't get round it.
Well, unless you just like kick the bucket.
Yeah. But
don't do that.
what the guidelines do is they make sure that none of this external cover touches any of your inner fly sheet, and that's so important. And the number of people that go, oh, my tent leaks, it doesn't leak, you just haven't pegged it out properly. So make sure the guidelines are there for a reason, peg it out properly. So that's our next job. Pegs.
Yep, pegs.
So right now Claire is making a great point, but her mic fell off and we didn't realise. But the point she is making is that if you're in an area with loads of mosquitoes, have the entrance to the tent pointing into the wind if possible. Mozzies don't like wind, so they tend to hang around in the loo of a tent, out of the wind. And the last thing you want to do is walk into a swarm of mozzies as you enter or exit your tent. And of course, no matter what, keep the door closed all the time, even if you're not in the tent.
However, if you are somewhere that's not mosquito ridden, sometimes it's nicer to have that bit of shelter from the thing. So again, this is talking about adapting how you set up your campsite depending on your environment.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, before we finish, I want to point out some cool little things on this that I like. Firstly, round the side here, you've got these vents here, which I think are great. But the brilliant thing on this one is they have these little hard ridges in there. So you can either have it closed up and it velcros closed, or if you want to keep it open, so many tents just have a slit in them and you just have to hope. This one actually physically you can hold open, so you can get really nice airflow going through there and out the other side.
Wow.
The other thing I like about this when it comes to this is not only do you have this lip here to make sure there's water, you have this lip here. So that when water runs off there, it hits there and runs down the back and off the side.
Pretty cool, right?
And in the morning, when you get up and this is covered in dew or rain, and you open this, suddenly you'll just see loads of water flowing. That's not going to happen on here. That's a little thing that I haven't seen on another tent before, and I just think it's amazing.
I would like to close the show with a huge thank you to our loyal and our growing audience who have stuck with us as we have revamped the show. And please, please, please remember to enter the competition for the KTM 790 Adventure R, and we will see you next month. Whoa! I'm sorry, buddy, that was so funny. Tell me the camera was on. Tell me it was on. I would like to say a huge no. Stop looking at me! Stop looking at me! Yeah, but let's be honest with you, we're not going to do that.
Oh my god. We're lucky enough to be able to... No. Welcome to the second-hand bike review. Here in Gary Smith. My life any easier, I'll be honest with you, Tom.
You want to see some of my outtakes? Don't use that as an outtake either. Which is now going to be an outtake.
An outtake of the outtake. After finishing the riding on the road, no.
I'll just do it.